Morning to everyone. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Sunday. Colorado, it's a beautiful day outside, so that's always good. Spring is in the air. Love it. I'm going to start out on this one by just kind of giving my personal report on how my marathon went. Kind of a quick recap. Then kind of looking forward to the rest of training into spring, into summer. Kind of a shift from what I did the last 3 months, pretty much. So yeah, pretty much, the marathon went pretty well. Didn't get the time I was hoping for. I was actually about 15 to 20 minutes slower than the previous year. Kind of take that with a grain of salt though, because I was dealing with kind of a leg injury. It was bugging me. Mile 8 or 10, it kind of just kicked in and it wasn't really running the same. Kind of had a breakdown in form. That kind of cost me at the end, miles 21 through 26. So it was kind of stop and go for about three of those miles, 3 to 4 of those miles. So, when you're walking for 15, 20 minutes plus of a race, you're not going to get the time you want, obviously. But I think overall, when I put everything into perspective, shorter training session, which I'll speak about why that was in a few minutes, kind of looking, basically at body weight, preparation was on point, hydration, rest, all that stuff. My taper week went well. But yeah, just kind of, looking at the whole result and just kind of facing reality, so to speak. Like, yeah, I weighed more, had some good training sessions, but didn't quite peak as well as if I had started maybe end of January, first week of February to hardcore endurance training, focus on running, main priority. I've kind of given some more preference to weightlifting in the last 8 to 10 months, especially since my Ironman, my 70.3 race last year Ironman in June. So when I reflect on the last 11 months, I'm proud of the fact that I completed another marathon, 4 half marathons within that time. I was able to bulk to 195, 196 around Christmas time of end of last year in 2023. Starting this year, I had, a real nice, I was happy with my frame, my muscle. I put on some muscle, my physique, how I looked overall. I think aesthetically, I've made some good progress. And, basically weightlifting, staying healthy, pushing myself, adding some intensifiers in my workouts, which I'll speak about later in one of these next few episodes once we go kind of dive deep into kind of the bodybuilding type, I guess, training that I'm looking forward to doing this next year or two. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have for the marathon. Anyone who does a marathon knows that you don't always get, a lot of things have to line up for you to get the optimal time you're looking for. You can even be well prepared, which I believe I was, but that leg that was bugging me just kind of messed it up. I mean, I had a pretty high goal, right around 3 hours. So the fact that I get in the 320s, it's not a deal breaker. It's not, doesn't crush me, but it's just one of those things it's kind of, I'm not surprised that happened just due to the fact that I wasn't 100% healthy. And anyone who does, plenty of endurance or tries to, elevate their fitness and do kind of some high skill, high intensity, high difficulty accomplishments, they don't always go the way you want. But I think what's important is obviously that you just kind of stay at it and, give 100% and keep going and kind of stay disciplined towards what the end goal is. If I'm completely honest, there were plenty of times where I think mentally was the biggest advantage I gained from this year with this shortened endurance season. I start out with 2 or 3 half marathons and I build up to this full marathon. But there were plenty of more times where I wake up on a weekend and I'm just not as motivated to run 20 miles as I was the previous year or even the year before, when I had not yet accomplished that goal of a full marathon, nonstop. So for me, my body weight, like I said, it was 195 in the winter. It dropped down to maybe 186, 187 for this race, but honestly 3 to 5 pounds heavier than what I weighed last year. Which from the perspective of building strength and building a better overall body and physique, and have a good, base for lifting and getting stronger when I'm not doing these endurance races, I made some good progress. That's related to diet. That's related to 2-a-day workouts, 2 or 3 days a week during the winter. That's attributed also basically just to kind of discipline in terms of timing of my workouts, waking up really early, sometimes, 4 a.m. to go work out at, 4:50, 5 a.m. Before I got to go to work or take my son to school. So kind of I guess going head on that kind of mental advantage of that mental strength of, the alarm goes off. You don't always want to, but there's plenty of guys that wake up early, pretty much every day and work out at 5 a.m. So the fact that I kind of did that, added on some 2-a-day workouts, like, a Monday morning workout might be back or, chest or something. And then I go into arms and shoulders in the evening with high intensity, maybe boxing session or, heavy bike intervals or something like that. So anything to really kind of like build that strength and kind of build that tolerance, that pain tolerance level really of, especially in long distance races, it comes down to, a lot of it comes down to pain tolerance at the end. I mean, almost the thing that hurts more than your lungs is just your legs and your entire body. So I don't think it's surprising to people that when at least for me, because I lift weights a lot too, like when I run a full marathon, like my entire body hurts after. So this was no different. But again, a good experience. I think mentally, I just kind of grinded it out and stuck with it and got to the finish. And, obviously I'm at a point in my fitness to where there's really no doubt. There's zero doubt in my mind that I'm going to follow a schedule and stick to what I say I'm going to do, which is good. The only question mark comes into play of, are you going to be healthy enough to execute? Are these goals realistic? And also, do you have the time to complete these goals without fail? Obviously, a lot of people that are watching this and that are involved in fitness at my level, I'm not at the elite level, I'm not at the professional level, but I'm definitely in an advanced level where it's very important to me. You need to find the balance between, family, friends, if you have a lot of friends, business, work, sleep, rest, all that stuff. Any other hobbies you have, obviously you want to prioritize those too. Like if you're somebody that's, basically into like, cartoon, maybe art, like creation or something, or like, you're drawing cartoons or something, or trying to publish animation online or something. You have that, you have fitness, you have family, significant other, whatever it is, kids, all this stuff that kind of basically just kind of, messes into your specific 24/7 day-to-day routine. So nice thing about me shifting from endurance into weightlifting specifically is that when you're trying to prep for a long race, you have to have 2-hour workout sessions, which you really can't avoid. But I've kind of dialed into specific workouts that for me, kind of at the level I'm at. Again, I'm not a professional, I'm not at the elite level. But I basically take an hour to a very intense workout, and I definitely get the most out of my body, the most out of the hour that I spend in the gym. So I think that's where the importance of kind of time management comes into play, both while you're at the gym and when you're outside of the gym, with your scheduling and everything. Again, another episode, I'll dig into that, but I wanted this conversation to be kind of me introducing kind of the post-race into full-on bulking, but bulking properly and bulking in the right way. There's a lot of, I'm just going to call it out. There's a lot of bullshit that goes on and gets published out in the fitness world. I know a lot of people even say that, like, I'm not special saying, oh, a lot of the fitness advice is BS, but I am basically differentiating and saying a lot of the fitness advice is BS because it gives you half of the solution you need and expects you to get all of the results that you expect. So it's almost like you're basically getting sold like a discount vehicle, and you're giving, the manual or whatever, all the instructions, but you're not given the best instructions you could get for that same vehicle to make it really optimal, to make it higher performance. And there's, keeping with the vehicle metaphor, just because you have an older vehicle doesn't mean you can't make it run like a Ferrari, and vice versa. If you don't take care of that really nice vehicle that you have now, say you're in your 20s and you're not stretching, you're not, taking care of your diet, drinking alcohol, whatever, you're not going to expect to have that longevity that most people have. So the reason that I call out a lot of these articles and these quick messages from fitness, enthusiasts is, they'll say no carbs, zero carbs, high fat. They don't really differentiate. They really don't say why it works, how long to do it, etc. Like anyone who's done keto, I just did keto, for example, and keto's great, but I'm not putting on weight and putting on as much muscle as I do when I'm off keto, when I'm consuming fats and carbs at a necessary amount. So micronutrition comes into play. A lot of apps that don't give you everything come into play. I have a great diet template to where I have a couple of clients that use it, and it includes micronutrition to basically cover the gaps depending on your protein source, depending on your carbohydrate source. Carbohydrates from white rice is totally different than carbohydrates from 3 cups of spinach with bell peppers on a salad. You're not getting as much micronutrition from that white rice, but it's high glycemic, it's quick to process. So different types of food sources have benefits, but none of these quick articles, none of these one of these 3 5-minute videos, the people that are basically saying, do this, don't do that, this is going to get you results, etc. They don't go into the nitty gritty and give you a legitimate outline or template. There's plenty of bodybuilders saying steroids are good if you use them correctly, but make a decision if you're going to get to the pro level, maybe make that serious decision to jump into steroids. And I totally agree with that. And then there's also people that are, great athletes that just say, like I did this and this, like I ate this much, 10 ounces of meat, whatever during a meal or whatever. I ate 6 times a day. Again, back to the bodybuilders. I ate 6 times a day. And then, I trained whatever. I did cardio for 90 minutes, whatever it is. But there's really no legitimate conversations, which is what I'm trying to provide on this, in this content and on my channel, is basically let me give you day by day, meal by meal, micronutrition by micronutrition, down to the milligrams of basically what, for example, like vitamin D, you're recommended maybe 20,000 IUs, right? Individual units. So a lot of pills will have maybe 2,000 IUs. That's 10 pills a week. So what days, plan it out. What days do you have take 2 of those, you know what I mean? And then get your vitamin D for the week. Because if you fall behind, especially iron's a big one for me, I have those 57 milligram tablets of iron. So in my program, I specify to my clients, this is what I do because, well, I already have spinach, right? But I don't really get iron from other food sources all the time. So I time my micronutrition to give me that. And also in that same process, I'm preserving my kidneys, I'm preserving my organs because I'm not fucking up by over consuming and making my kidneys work more. There's plenty of people that think that drinking a bunch of water is great, but dude, figure it out. If you drink a bunch of water, it's like calories in, calories out, water in, water out. You're going to piss out all the micronutrition that you need. So that's where sodium, potassium come into play for hydration and nutrient absorption and maintenance. So that type of logic in your diet is missing, in my opinion, a lot of these channels that are kind of quick, someone's either, if the female is very attractive, that gets a lot of eyes, or if a bodybuilder is very big, like huge and massive, and they only show when they're at their peak, like when they're shredded and stuff. You don't see the guys that are, they look like they're overweight, or they look like they got a gut when they're in the off season because they're pushing their body both directions. Like there's so much that's hidden, and it's only show the glamour. And there's a lot of people that do that. So that's what I'm talking about when I refer to kind of the bullshit that basically goes on, where that's not a good way to get a response from anyone who consumes your content, because the response you're going to get from people is, oh, there's an easier way to do it than what the actual way is. There's really not. I mean, there's very few people that are above my level that provide the content and quality that I'm providing and that I'm going to provide moving forward in this podcast. So bottom line, I want to provide a full overview, especially in the few episodes following this one. This is kind of an intro to the program for bodybuilding for me, but also like a relatable schedule of, this is what I do. Like, this is how much micronutrition I take. Like, this is when I take vitamin B, vitamin B12. This is the difference between, omega-3, omega-6. Like, we'll go down to the chemical level and, biochemistry and say, okay, this is why, this is the amino chain profile of all these, different fats, etc. These are what triglycerides are. This is basically the energy sources that go into your body. This is why this is why I recommend maintaining, energy levels by consuming less sugar, etc. Because the whole, everything is, oh, sugar's bad. Sugar's the devil. It gives you diabetes. But what type of fat's good? How much, like a legitimate example, here's my body weight. Here's how much fat I should consume. Here's how I balance. Here's how I have like a scale of carbohydrate intake versus fat intake. If I see my body weight go up, is that good or bad? How much water am I holding? Even Sam Sulek on his channel, he basically says a lot. He's called it out multiple times. Like, if he's on a bulk, he weighs 260, but then when he cuts, like that body weight difference when he cuts is maybe 15 pounds lost, but it's maybe 3 to 4 pounds of muscle, but a lot of it's water and glycogen, which is totally valid. So those types of details, they're not very common. And then we need to go a layer deeper and dig into kind of, like, how do we control for that? And how do we use carb cycling to optimize performance levels when you're still on a cut? So, guys that maybe have the genetics, I believe that's ectomorph, if I remember correctly, but those guys that have the genetics that are basically kind of to hold mass, to basically hold on to muscle and not really lose weight as easy. How do we treat that differently, etc.? So one of the things that I want to get out of these next few episodes and this year, definitely of my podcast channel, is to basically establish like a really good representation of my scope of solutions for all these, for anyone who's trying to get into fitness or anyone who's been into fitness and is tired of the same results. There's plenty of ways to surprise your body. There's plenty of ways to surprise yourself and become a lot more successful with the same time invested, the same schedule, etc. So I probably got about 5 minutes left. I don't want to make this one longer than 20 minutes, but I'll get into what I'm looking for going forward. I've made a decision to really not do any endurance races for the next 2 to 3 years. That decision may change. But for me right now, and based on kind of my response to this training season, I think mentally I am just more committed and I'm more motivated and I get more emotional when I think about getting big and strong as I do to improving my running. I've already ran plenty for my life. I mean, back into 2016 was my first half marathon I did in Kansas. Since then, I've done about 15 to 20 half marathons. I've done 5 full marathons, 2 Ironman, and a handful of obstacle course races. So I got a bunch of medals here on my wall. If you can see, they're hanging up right there. Yeah, so there's about 25 to 30 of those bad boys. And I love it. I mean, it's been great. It's taught me a lot about discipline. It's taught me a lot about, basically sticking to a plan. You're holding yourself accountable for A, why you succeeded, B, why you failed. But I've made pretty good strides. I mean, when I first started endurance racing, I weighed 153, 154 pounds. And that was my race in Kansas. And, I just finished a full marathon at over 185 pounds body weight. So I put on 30 pounds. I run twice as long over the course of 7 to 8 years. I mean, that's pretty good progress. But that being said, like I've never really kind of committed to like, hey, I want to weigh 200 pounds, 205, 210 pounds, because I'm 6'1". So my frame should allow me to get to, 205, 210. If I just stick to it for a couple of years and really focus on a lean bulk, a good process that will get me there. And that's those are my goals moving forward. For this next year, you're going to see me talking about, my lean bulk, my bodybuilding approach to, okay, let me build a schedule. Let me schedule my workout so that I can build as much lean muscle as I can over the next 2 to 3 years, and basically reach a weight related goal and a lifting strength related goal. I lift in a way that's high volume, and there's plenty of, I guess there's 2 sides of that coin too. There's guys that are basically more powerlifting, like, 3 to 5 reps, fewer sets. And then there's guys that go high volume. In my experience, high volume preserves the joints, but you can still get great pumps. You can still get good, basically results from high volume as long as you do it right. Obviously, overtraining is something you want to avoid. Again, I'll use Sam Sulek as an example. That guy is only 20, I think 21, 22 years old at this point. But that guy is really good at stopping when he should. So he's very strong. We can all see that. But one thing that's impressive about him is that he knows 8 to 10 sets at the volume that he's doing, which is usually, between 8 to 13, 14 reps. So that type of volume he's an advanced lifter, obviously, but that type of volume is yielding him really good results. People that stand there for 2 hours and feel like they need to spend 2 hours in the gym, that's not going to cut it. If you have enough intensity, you can get out 45 minutes to an hour at a single muscle group. And that's what my schedule is. I usually do like a bro split type thing where it's basically big body parts individually once a week. That's back and legs, and chest can kind of fall into that category too, back, legs, and chest. But shoulders and arms and abs and heavy cardio, at this point, those are going to fall into different weeks and different times where they fit in based on how I feel. So I basically have the majority of my programming, at least 60 to 75%, that is set in stone. Like when I do leg day, I'm not fucking around with anything else. Like, especially when I'm starting to do these leg days that are high intensity, like anyone who does a hard leg day knows, like you need to carb up, you need to get your nutrition, and you need to focus on legs only for that day, because you're going to be toast after that workout, as long as you do it intense and you do it correctly. So I'm no different. I mean, especially now that I'm getting into like a muscle building mode for like the entire year and beyond, legs are going to be a priority of just to do legs only. Back is important to me. People that are just starting out, or maybe not starting out, but people that have worked out for a while, but they're starting to notice like they lack symmetry, or they lack, they have lagging body parts that need to be brought up. For example, guys that walk around all day like this with their shoulders slacked, they want to basically focus on back and shoulders and lift so that they can bring their posture up. They look better in a t-shirt, and also just look more confident when they're walking around. That gives you the more dominant look. Like if you want to have the more alpha look, right, then you want to basically you have good posture, have your chest out, and then have your shoulders that are well built, and kind of those traps that are kind of sticking up. So I focus on back because that's always been my lagging body part. So I do back a single day too, which is very important to me. And again, like that for me, back is just as intense as legs. Like it's very taxing. Your back is a bigger muscle group than your chest. Your triceps are a bigger muscle group than your biceps. So I don't really do push pull, but I just focus on like, hey, if I'm going to do a chest day, I don't do triceps because obviously a lot of chest is tricep dominant. So yeah, I usually do like chest and arms, like chest and biceps. And then on a shoulder day, I might do shoulders and triceps. So that might be like that fourth or fifth day, right? So I got back, legs, chest, and then I have shoulders and arms. And then I might have a second chest workout, which is incline. So flat chest one day, incline chest with biceps, that's another day. So we're at 5 days. The 6th day would just be like high intensity training, like boxing or interval training, something like that. Again, with a smaller muscle group, maybe a second back day. That 6th day during my week, if we're talking about 7-day weeks, that really depends on how I feel and how the rest of training has gone for that week. So, just because there's 7 days in a week doesn't mean you have to follow a 7-day routine. Like I lift this body part every Wednesday, Monday's International Chest Day, stuff like that. So basically, if you follow more of like, okay, this is my cycle that may last 7 days, it may last 8, it may last 5 this week, depending on how I feel. And you have to be responsive to how your body's feeling and listen to your body. There's days where I'm exhausted at 8 p.m. and I literally just tell my wife, I'm going to go lay down and probably go to bed in 30, 45 minutes because I know that I basically worked very hard this weekend, weightlifting, training, whatever. And I need to listen to my body and basically give myself the rest I need before I go after the next day. And then kind of in a similar fashion, say, for example, I want to lift legs 2 days a week. But for me, for example, I'm coming off the endurance race. I lifted legs very hard on Tuesday for the first time. It's Sunday. My legs are still fucking sore. So I'm not going to go in tomorrow and have another hard leg day and compromise the quality and the intensity. I might do some machine work on legs tomorrow, and then I'm going to wait it out and go back on Thursday or Friday with the high intensity, like max effort, max production leg day so that I can get the most out of that day where I do that muscle group. It's not heroic to basically work out when you're sore, work out when one of the indicator for me, because I do a lot of running too, is that if my joints hurt, like when my joints hurt, that's definitely a signal of being overtrained. But if my back is sore because I just did back and I'm going to do chest today, and my arms maybe are a tad, maybe my bicep, I just got worked out biceps the day before or something, or triceps. If they're a tad sore, I still go after chest, right? Like I'm basically sequencing the lift until the workouts into okay, I might be a little bit, fatigued, or one part of my smaller muscle groups might be a little bit fatigued, like grip strength, for example, for back. If you do a heavy ass, lat pull down, you're gonna feel it in your forearms. So the next day you go into a lift that requires you to use your forearms, it might be a little bit sore, But again, the big muscle groups, the muscle group that you prioritize, make sure that is always preserved and kept fresh, like cycle. And that's cyclical, right? So like I said, for legs, I want to build my legs up this summer because my legs have shrank because I've been doing so much running lately. You can't go run 2 hours, you can't go run 20 miles or whatever, and then come in and try to squat 315. Unless you're, very advanced and you already have like a good base from like being a, Division I football player or something. Guys that have been running as much as I have these last few months, they're not going to build their leg strength while they're, basically while they're running so much. So this is like the rebound. This is like the shift of focus into primarily bodybuilding, optimal, building muscle, but staying functional, keeping my body fresh. I'm not going to be going into a bodybuilding competition, or I'm not going to be doing a powerlifting competition. So my goal is literally high functionality, high performance, and just make good progress in strength, maintain flexibility, and also physically, like how aesthetically improve how I look. I've made some good improvements on how I look. I make plenty of shorts on my YouTube channel that kind of showcase, hey, I've looked bigger than last time. I look bigger than this time last year. I kind of look back on when I first made the decision to really get into endurance. I was a tad bit bigger, maybe, but I was holding more water. I wasn't quite as lean and quite as shredded on my back. So I like to, pay attention to those goals too. Like I've made good progress on, you could literally see every muscle in my back when I got a good back pump, and when I'm, when I'm kind of more shredded, and maybe when I'm dieted down a little bit, maybe when I'm towards that 185 body weight as opposed to 195. That's a good reference point too. When you do these cyclical kind of bulks and cuts, now that I'm going to be dedicated to lifting for 2 years, I'm not going to be bulking for 2 years in its entirety. Another call out for Sam Sulek. This will be the last one, I promise. But basically, he talks about how you go up 15, go down 10. go up 15 again, go down 10, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You're basically doing that multiple times. So that eventually over the course of a year to 2 years, you've put on 15 pounds of muscle, 10 to 15 pounds of muscle in maybe 2-3 years, right? Let's be realistic. Without steroids, you can't do much more than that, especially when you're advanced or like, more experienced, like somebody like myself. If you're a beginner, it's different. You can put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle in a single year if you eat a lot and train a lot and you've never done this. Your body's never done this. But the more muscle maturity you get, the more you work out, you realize like, wow, it takes consistency just to put on 2 to 3 pounds of muscle every year. I believe firmly that I have accomplished that in the last 2 to 3 years. And I have put on 8 to 10 more pounds of muscle on my frame since 2020, 2021, when I first started basically dedicating myself to fitness at all levels, like no drinking alcohol, rest, nutrition, training cycles, weekly regimens, all that stuff. So it's been good so far, but I really do. I know I've seen it, visually, that I have, basically cut myself off at the end of winter when I put on some good weight, some good muscle. I'm not fat. I don't feel like I got a lot of in my stomach. I don't have a lot of extra body fat. A little bit more, but I manage it because I do heavy cardio year round anyways. But basically what I'm doing now is I'm going to cut off that time where February hits and I start shrinking. Now I'm just going to grow, and then cut. So maybe next year in 2025, at this time, I'm not recovering for a marathon. I'm stopping at bulk where I get to 205 pounds and I'm going to go down to 198. And then I'm going to hit 198 and I'm going to spike back up to 210, 212. And I've never done this before. So my body I don't know what to expect, which is the exciting part. But fitness is about keeping it motivating and keeping it important to you. And that's where I feel like an attraction to getting as big as I can, because I've never done that. I've never been healthy in terms of no alcohol, responsibilities in my personal life's in order. And then I say, okay, I'm going to go all out on getting big. I've never done that. Since I've basically cleaned up the rest of my life, I've always been, okay, let me get a race. Let me try to run. Let me do like a marathon or an Ironman, whatever. And then let me lift weights while doing that. It's cool. It's fun to be a hybrid athlete because you kind of got the best of both worlds. But again, you're kind of limiting yourself when you say, okay, let's push this thing to the limit. I've never really pushed myself to the limit in terms of cutting off weights and going all in on a marathon. I might do that as I approach 40 years of age. But right now in my early 30s, I'm still highly motivated basically to get real big, like big, like, hey, like this guy looks like he could step on stage, that type of size. So that is something that I'm looking forward to doing and kind of pushing the envelope on that. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to learn a lot along the way, but in the process, just remember this episode and kind of this call is this podcast of, hey, here's my base, right? So I weigh 188 pounds right now. I'm 7 days removed from a marathon. So basically I'm going to go up past 190, get to 195, probably in 2 or 3 months, see how I feel, see how realistically it is to get to 200 and hold that for several months, maybe cut down to 192, 193, and then go back up and try to hit 205 by Christmas. So that's the schedule for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this and you'll follow me along the way. Feel free to drop any messages in the chat. I'm available. Obviously I have my training programs. I'm taking on clients. Check out my website, hybridlivingathletics.com. I got all the program information on there. I'm going to start doing some more blogs, some new announcements, maybe just kind of some article sharing, stuff like that to keep people interested in visiting that webpage. So, definitely adding some more value now that I kind of have the capacity to do so. So thanks a lot for watching. Go out there, be great, have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Take care.